Smudge? Oh god, Smudge. We're starting off strong. What's up, Smudge Wellness? It's your girl, Jazmin Kylene. I am a spiritual counselor. I am a journalist. I am a human being just laughing and playing around. And I'm so grateful that you guys have invited me back to talk a little bit more about things. Here I am doing that right now. So when it comes to spiritual wellness, ritual and commitment are pillars when it comes to really developing a strong sense of self. And so those are two really relevant themes to what we're going to talk about today, which is essentially how to connect deeper with the universe. And this is a very broad thing to talk about, and honestly there are so many different ways you can connect with the universe, and I think that you may probably already have your own set of resources or tools for the ways that you for the ways in which you commit to feeling more deeply connected to the universe. But I wanted to tie in the idea of ritual when it comes to connecting with the universe, because truthfully, the more that we ritualize things, the more that we connect and find them sacred. And that's kind of like the whole point of this thing. And I think why it's important to recognize your connection to the universe is because essentially we are an embodiment of it. We are a microcosm of a very, very, very vast galaxy. I mean, we're made up of stardust. This is like science, people, look it up. And so connecting to the universe means more deeply connecting to yourself and seeing the magic and the divinity in yourself. It'll make manifestation easier. It'll make peace much more within reach. It'll make you really cemented in the belief that there is nothing you are smaller than or incapable of achieving when you realize that this vast universe you pray to and want to connect with so deeply exists innately. So ritualizing your life and committing to ritualizing your life and seeing the time that you spend and exert and the energy that you spend and exert as sacred is really going to solidify that belief. Whenever we feel disconnected from the universe, we typically see ourselves as separate from the universe, right? We see divinity as one thing and ourselves as a separate organism. And then within that, we see ourselves as individuals as separate entities and things that are physically not the same instead of one microcosm of energy. So when we begin to ritualize our lives, we begin to inherently treat our time and the things that we do as sacred, right? And the more that we treat our time as sacred, we see ourselves as sacred, and we reconnect to the knowing that we are not separate from the universe, nor are we separate from magic and divinity, but rather an embodiment of it, a reflection of it, and derivative of it, right? So the more that you ritualize your time, the more that you're going to feel connected to the universe. So here are a couple ways that I would suggest embarking on the journey of committing to ritualizing your life and committing to honoring and connecting with what you define God to be and the universe entirely. And of course, there are very obvious things that you can do to connect with the universe, right? Chanting, doing some toning, right? Doing your ohms, doing your ohs, really letting your breath and your voice be like a tool for solidifying yourself in the present moment. Meditation, these are all things that are going to quiet down the ego and center you in the self. And when we're in ourselves, we realize, and the truth is so organically understood, that the universe is us and we are the universe. But I think when it comes to integrating little tools into our everyday, these are a few of the key ones that I think would really bring a person back to the knowing that oh, I'm not different or separate from this thing, I am this thing. The first one is pretty also broad and woo, but important, so stick with me here. The first one would be to start seeing the lessons and the karmic ties within your relationship. When we see ourselves as separately, we're not deriving the lessons that we're meant to be teaching each other. And when we come back to the truth that we are all mirrors of each other and all one oop, there's a spider on me, we love that. Gonna go ahead and remove him. Okay, I'm back. There was just a spider on my leg. I lost my train of thought because of the spider. When we see ourselves as separate, we don't allow ourselves to derive the lessons that we're all teaching ourselves by mirroring each other, right? So when we come back to the truth that we are all derivative of one giant cosmic divine being rather than seeing ourselves as separate from it, we can actually further deeply learn from each other and pour less energy into argument and division and more energy into unifying and connecting with the beauty that is seeing the universe in each other and seeing the universe in ourselves and seeing the universe as something that's innately within us. So I will start speaking in human words right now, I promise. When you begin to experience strife within your platonic relationships, romantic relationships, familial relationships, it's important to step back and say, is this a thing that's happening outside of me? Or is this person mirroring to me what I'm not looking at within myself, what I'm uncomfortable with within myself, and how can I actually derive the nectar from the lesson that I meant to learn here? Because that is not a separate person. That's another version of me looking at me and telling me what it is that I need to actually be looking at. And so that, of course, sounds very convoluted and very woo, but you can begin to ritualize your relationships by dissecting them and realizing what it is that you are learning from each and every person in your life, whether it's someone that you would deem a friend or someone you would deem a foe, recognizing that they're all the same thing. They're all just people teaching you about yourself and reflecting the divinity within yourself. And divinity looks like shadow work, it looks like inner child healing, it looks like whatever it's showing up in that present form. So ritualize your relationships. Take some time to sit down and journal and think about what's coming up in all the individual relationships that you have and what they're teaching you about yourself, and realizing that that means that there's obviously one operating system going on and not something that's like divided and separate. Secondly would be to begin to ritualize your walks, right? If you go on walks, you've already done half of the labor, and I'm proud of you. But typically we can be distracted when we go on walks, whether we're on our phones or we're listening to music. And of course it's beautiful to immerse yourself in art and experience it. But when you are walking without distraction and simply present within whatever form of nature you're walking amongst, even if you live in a concrete jungle, honey, you're outside, you're going to take in so much of your surroundings, and you're going to feel so connected the more that you realize that, like, the universe is playing its own natural song, right? Whether it's birds singing or the wind whistling through, leaves, whatever form of natural ambient sound is playing, it's really going to connect you to realizing the beauty and existing in this this magical sphere that we see ourselves as separate from, and obviously we've sprouted from. I just burped. We've sprouted from this earth, that's all I was trying to say. So go on intuitive walks without distraction. Let your body guide you to where you want to go. Let the music of existing be your soundtrack, and just be with it. It's actually a form of meditation. Meditation, I think we see as like a traditional thing where you sit and you close your eyes and you om. And while that's one beautiful form of it, there are many forms of meditation, and walking meditation it's a beautiful way to bring the mind outside of living either in the past or in the future, and really centering it in what it means to be here and now. And yeah, it's my favorite beat to follow when it comes to connecting to the universe. Just simply walking amongst earth and noticing the colors, the sounds, the smells, really being at one with what is. Another would be to speak over your meals. And of course, this is something that's probably shown up in your life one way or another. You know, people typically, when they're religious, they'll pray over their meals. And while that's a beautiful way to do it, I think breaking that down to like what it fundamentally really means is important to come back to what it means to see ourselves as sacred. Because once we see ourselves as sacred, we begin to see that there is no separation between us and the universe, and there's no more deepening factor to connect with the universe than like seeing ourselves as an embodiment of it. So, every single morning I sleep next to a large glass of water, and before I even take a sip of it, I, because it's the first thing going into my body after essentially like 8 hours of fasting, I speak over it. I speak an affirmation that I'm intending for myself, I say a prayer, or I just simply speak gratitude into it, and then I drink it. And I realize the fact that like just the intentionality with seeing what you're putting into your body as something that deserves to be honored and spoken over and affirmed over is a really, really, really beautiful way to connect back to what it means to see food as fuel and nourishment, and see your body as a temple that is sacred and deserving of intentionality. So speak over your food, speak over your meals, speak over your whatever forms of liquid you're consuming, and realize that that really is connecting you back to seeing your body honestly as something that embodies the universe. And my favorite tip from this list is to pick a day to digitally detox and be present with what it means to live life physically and presently and in the moment. And typically when people do this, they'll designate like Sunday as their sacred day. That's what I've tried to designate mine as, if I'm committed to the practice, which I fall in and out of, and I'm totally okay with being honest about it. But whatever day works best for you, if there is a way to disconnect from what it means to exist so digitally and plugged in, and come back to body, come back to like the rhythm of being here and now, and just not being so consumed by like the overstimulation of technology is really what's going to bring you back to the universe. The universe, of course, exists in like the nuances, and it exists in the connections that you make online and the things you learn online, and even you experiencing this video. However, we really want to connect to the universe. We want to do so in the playing field, outside, amongst, you know, physical human connection, whether that's conversation, whether that's a shared meal, whether that's sex. It means coming back to what it means to live physically and presently and outside of perhaps the cosplay that we do online, or the ways in which we present ourselves to preserve like external validation. Listen, it's a whole thing, but the point is that create a sacred day where not only you are digitally detoxed, but you're also honoring what it means to date yourself, to nourish yourself, to self-pleasure, to self-please, to self-lather in what it means to like adorn yourself. So make that day the day where you take yourself out for a nice meal, or you go to the beach, or you come back to nature, or you are really committed to connecting with a roommate or a family member or your partner, whatever that looks like. Really understanding that like we experience the universe at the most viscerally when we are in flow, when we are in presence, when we are amongst each other, right? Like I said, we are simply mirroring the universe to each other. So when we're connecting human to human, we're connected to the universe innately. So pick your day when online and Instagram and scrolling and all of that has no space or time. And just come back to being. Coming back to playing, I think, is like just the most healing thing. When we are in our childlike nature, we are the most connected to the universe. There's no way, or rather there's no reason why you would have to explain to a kid like, listen, you need to be more connected to the universe, because they so deeply and innately are. And this is because conditioning hasn't hit them yet. Their egos haven't began to tear them down yet. They haven't been, you know, influenced by the things that we are influenced by when it comes to seeing ourselves as insecure and separate and fear-based, right? So coming back to who you are when you are honoring that inner child energy that just wants to express and create and be free is going to be the easiest way that you connect back to the universe and connect back to whatever you define God to be. And lastly, what I wonder if I already said lastly. Time is a construct, it's fine. The point is, my favorite one is to have a dialogue, whether you define them as guides or angels or God or the universe or the stars or source, whatever it is that you pray to or speak to, make that dialogue consistent and direct, and something that you do on like some sort of regular basis. And if you are in a process of like redefining or reconstructing your relationship with religion and calling it prayer, like triggers you, I totally get it. Don't call it prayer, call it talking, conversing, thinking out loud to your higher self. Whatever it is, just know that when you begin to communicate with the universe will begin to communicate with you, and it will do so in your written language. And that means if you are someone who feels things through synchronicities, through numerical signs, you know, like angel numbers, repeating numbers, through music and song lyrics, through colors, through animal totems, the universe is going to communicate with you the way that you speak, even through cards, through some sort of divination. Understand that like the moment you open up that dialogue, it's going to flow much more powerfully, much more strongly. So just start it. And if you don't know what to say to them or to yourself or to whatever it is that you're speaking to, start off small. Just start off with like a good morning. I'm excited to have a good day today, and you know, let me know when you're here. Send me a feather or send me a yellow car, or you know, whatever it is that you want to see in whatever language it is that you speak. Start that dialogue, and that dialogue is going to speak back to you, and it's going to be a beautiful way to strengthen the intimacy that you have with the universe. You know, I've always had friends that are like, oh my god, you see so many angel numbers and you like see all these signs and synchronicities, like I want to see them. And it's like, they want you to see them too. You just have to start the conversation. So start somewhere, because somewhere is somewhere, and if you don't start, you'll be nowhere. So that is grammar. And so yeah, that's basically what I think are a beautiful set of starter tips for connecting more deeply to the universe. I hope that that served you. Please let me know if you embark on this journey and implement any of the things that I shared and how it's going for you. And of course, one big thank you to Smudge Wellness for housing my voice, for letting me be here and swag my shit. And of course, if you want to connect with me one-on-one, you can do so by visiting JazminKylene.com. I do counseling sessions, I do astrology readings, and I also have have a YouTube channel and a line of color healing Reiki infused teas. Those were a lot of words and I'm going to stop talking now. I'm wishing you the best and sending you all my love. See you next time.